Ever think you're having a bad day? Well, I not only had a bad day, I had a bad week, alright? At least several days spanning almost a week. What happened, we got a flat tire on the front of my Mitsubishi box fan here. And the problem we encountered here trying to fix a flat tire is that the lug nuts were frozen tight. Now this truck is it's a 1989 model. I got it back in fall of '88, and I replaced the front tires after about 15,000 miles. They were bald. They were crap tires, all right? The problem I encountered, the hole that I got in this tire was in the sidewall on the back side. Something must have flipped up and punctured the sidewall. I did patch it, or I repaired it with a couple of plugs. That got me from where I went flat about 2.5 miles from my shop here. It got me home. But I want to caution you, do not plug a tire on a sidewall and then drive around with it. All right? It's okay in emergency to get you to wherever you can safely get your tire repaired, but you do not want to be driving around with plugs or patches or whatever on a sidewall on a tire. Plugs and patches are meant to go on the tread of the tire, not the sidewalls. All right? And the proper way to even do a tread is to plug the tire, slice it off clean on the inside, clean it up and put a patch over that, and then put your tire back on. But don't do that to a sidewall, all right? So at any rate, I went to get this thing off, and these lugs, like I said, have been on here for almost 20 years without taking this wheel off. And even if this was good American steel on here, it probably would have rusted and not come off any easier. So I don't want to blame the Japanese for importing a vehicle with some crap steel or whatever like that, but it's the fact that this sat on here for 20 years without breaking those lug nuts loose. All right? And you won't find many vehicles that, especially a shop vehicle, that's going to go 20 years without changing tires. But I've only got 68,000 miles on this truck, and this truck will go 1,000,000 miles with no problem at all with proper maintenance and all. But for us, what we do, most of my work is local. So I'm driving 2 or 3 miles that way, 2 or 3 miles this way. The truck sits all day, comes back, and it might be parked at the shop for a week, a month sometimes or more. And except for a few, out-of-town jobs we had where we did put maybe 1,000, 1,500 miles on a job traveling to the other side of the state. I've been up to the city, which is an 1.5-hour ride from here with this truck. I've been down to South Jersey, but for the most part, it sits locally. All right, so I don't put a lot of miles on it. So that's the reason these things froze up. The point of this video: how the hell do you get lug nuts off that refuse to come off? Okay. All right, here's a close-up of the jack stands I have underneath. I just want to caution it to make sure you always put some healthy, good quality jack stands under your car. All right, don't use little blocks of wood. Don't ever leave it on the hydraulic lift, because that could fail. The hydraulic line could suddenly pop and your lift will drop down. So make sure you do yourself a favor and always use a quality jack stand. Okay, this was my first choice trying to get these lugs off. All right, I ensured which direction the lug nut has to turn to remove it. And in the center here, and I'll repeat this many times in this video, in the center of the stud, there's an L stamped on each lug, on each stud. That means that this is a left-hand thread. That's the opposite of an American vehicle, which are mostly a right-hand thread. So, okay, so what we did, we tried with the air wrench, didn't even budge. We couldn't break these loose. I went from the air wrench to a breaker bar. With the breaker bar, gave it everything I could here, it wouldn't budge it. That didn't work. I went to the liquid wrench. Let me get the bottle, show you what I was talking about. Okay, liquid wrench, penetrating, lubricating and penetrating oil. If you spray this on, back behind the nut into the threads, you let that soak in there for sometimes a few minutes, might have to go over a few hours, sometimes overnight. That a lot of times will help you get a frozen lug nut off. Alright? So yeah, you gotta spray liquid wrench on. So this did not work. This did not work. This did not work. So I resorted to a torch. I'm showing you this because I've already wheeled the oxygen acetylene tank into the back of the shop. So, but this is kind of indicating what we did. We put heat all the way around the outside of that lug nut. All right, now I already put my oxygen acetylene tank away, but I'll demonstrate real quickly with this MAP gas, which does get pretty hot. Sometimes this might do the trick if you don't have access to an oxygen acetylene tank. So basically, you want to apply heat to the nut itself, only the lug nut. Don't put the torch onto the stud. You want this to expand and contract, not the stud, if you can avoid it. So stay on the outside like this. Don't go here. Don't apply heat like this. Alright? Just go to the outside of the nut like this. Alright? What you'll do, you'll heat that up. What I do, I move from each face. This is the hex bolt. So you'll go from one to the other, alright? Stay away from the center, by the way. You don't want to melt that grease in there and get that all running out of there. So you get these things nice and hot. Of course, if you use an oxygen acetylene tank, which has a much bigger, larger, hotter flame, you can get to the point that you'll turn these nuts cherry red. You do not want to do that. What that'll do is take all the temper out. Alright, another trick that sometimes works, get yourself a mallet, alright? Better than a hammer, alright? And you're going to want to tap these. You'll just go around and lightly tap each face. Like, don't bang it hard, especially if it's really cold out. These things become brittle. You could actually, if you hit it too hard, you can snap that stud right off. What you want to do is lightly tap each face. Just keep working your way around. Alright? You just keep doing this. And sometimes that'll do the trick. As we found in the case of this tire, or this wheel, I did this, I did the torch, and also I kept pouring liquid wrench on here every day for a few days, all the way around the outside of that lug nut. That did not do the trick either. So we went back to this again, and what I did, I kept going forward, reverse, alternating back and forth. That's the other thing. If you do have a lug wrench, a pneumatic one, you go one direction, go back the other one. Like that. You keep flipping back and forth. Sometimes the back and forth motion will break you loose, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, that did not work. So, what we had to come up with, 3 or 4 days, a week, I don't know how long it's been. We finally gave up playing the ladies' game. And we said, to hell with this. We brought out the big toys. You think this will do it? I'm 6 foot, so this is just about a 6-foot pipe. An 1.5 inch diameter pipe. I put this on the end. I put that. And I just stood out here and I pushed down gently. Didn't do the trick. I said, you know what? To hell with it. Balls to the walls, man. I went and I stood on that sucker, and I jumped and I jumped and I jumped. And about the 4th time I jumped on the end of this 6 foot, I heard creak and I heard a crack, and it settled down about a 1/2 inch. I jumped again, it went down a little more. I jumped the 3rd time, it went down and hit the ground. That lug was broke loose. I repeated the same procedure on the other 4 lugs, and this finally did the trick. Alright, so we finally got them off. Alright, here's what caused all our grief in the first place. I got a hole in the sidewall, alright? And I gotta say, these tires are a pretty good sidewall tire. They have a load range rating of E, which designates 12-ply sidewall. So you know that it had to be something healthy that put a hole in this sidewall, but something did. And I did plug it just as an emergency effort to get back here to the shop. You don't really ever want to drive around with plugs in your sidewall. It's not kosher. It's not allowed. It's not a safe thing to do, but like I said, it was an emergency effort just to get us by in a pinch. I had about a 2.5 mile ride from where I went flat back to the shop, so I was able to plug it, get back here before the tire went flat. It only held there for about 5 or 6 hours, and so that's not good. So at any rate, I'm going to be replacing both front tires now. This one's worn down, about 75% of the tire is gone. We got 25% life left in it, but I don't want to put a new tire on one side and have an older tire on the back. You want to match your tire, so that's our next step. We want to get this off the rim and get a replacement tire. Got to remember, these are reverse thread. They're a left-hand thread, so what you would normally think of as turning them left to take them off, you're turning them left to put them back on again. And that's why, like I said, in the middle of the stud, there's an L stamped in there, which designates left-hand thread. That's a lot easier putting it on than it was to take it off, huh? Okay, so that's what it takes to free up a frozen lug nut. Actually, 5 frozen lug nuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And after only 2 weeks, we're back in business. We got this thing all buttoned up. We got a decent tire back on there. And yeah, I got to get another bolt for this hubcap. Don't know where the third one went. This is what happens when you get old. You misplace things. But we'll take care of that. But that's the story, Joe. We got another good L215 85R16. So, looks like we're good to go here. I've got it all greased up. Let's drop it back down on the ground. So yeah, it may not be made out of wood, but I still took care of the job, didn't I? That's it. I'm going back and making sawdust. Bye all.